What's up? What's up? What's up? What's happening?
I wasn't ready.
What's going on, everybody?
What's up, everybody? Oh my gosh, you should have waited.
I should have waited.
I'm sweating.
Put the fan on.
Turn a hot flash.
Turn the fan on. It's Saturday night, folks, and you know what that means when Saturday night comes and you see us here at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That means it's time for Have a Conversation After Dark.
You should have gave me a heads up.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought you were looking at the screen and saw the time going out. That's all right. This is a real conversation.
Yeah,
with real people.
Yeah,
at real life.
Real life.
This is real hot flashes.
No.
There it is. So
real hot flashes.
So that's what's up. Let me make sure that y'all can hear us.
Oh, I was gonna say I left my phone upstairs.
And if you can hear us, let us know you can hear us. If you're here watching now, let us know you're watching. If you're watching the replay, let us know you're watching the replay. Listen, whether you're watching live or watching the replay, we ask that you just tap the share button. That's it. That's all we ask of you. Tap the share button so that other folk can come in and check this out as well. Let's see here. Yep. So we can be heard. So listen, you see the topic at the bottom of the screen, but before we actually get into the topic, for those of you who this might be your first time seeing us, wherever you're watching us right now, I am Oliver.
I'm Denise.
And we are passionate about relationships. We're authors, speakers, and coaches in the relationship space and the men's enrichment space. Just sharing our journey in hopes that it will encourage and inspire you on your journey, helping you to communicate on an extraordinary level, to recognize, manage, and recover from conflict in record time, and to build a holistic, intimate bond.
Yeah.
That is who we are. That is what we do. We are authors. We are authors of the journal, Have a Conversation, couples journal. Make sure that you grab that. You can get that either on our website, denali.org/shop, or on Amazon or on Barnes and Noble. Also, author of the book Overcoming the Man Laws for the Man Who Wants to Be His Best Despite What He Was Taught. You can also get that on Amazon, or you can get that on denali.org/shop as well. My journey of self discovery in the 8 areas that I've grappled with. So we would love for you to pick those items up as well. For the single mother in your life, uh, man, I'm not doing well here. For the single mother in your life, you need to go ahead and grab this. You don't have to pre-order; it's out.
Yeah, it's out.
Single mothers, dear single mommy journal and planner, phenomenal resource for the single mother.
Listen, Mother's Day is coming up. This
That's
would
why I
be
put
a
that up there.
great resource for, like you said, the single mommy in your life.
Yep.
So grab a copy or two
Yep.
for whoever you know who is a single mommy. We've been getting great feedback about how beneficial the journal and planner is for single mommies, and that was my hope. So go ahead and get that for Mother's Day. You got a little bit of time still.
Indeed. And you can get that on Amazon as well. So
Yeah.
for those of you who are watching now, watching the replay, go ahead and hit the share button so we can get some folk in here for this conversation. I don't know if we're going to go an entire hour.
Yeah.
So
Probably not.
get in, get your comments in while we're here. So have a conversation after dark is simply a time to have conversation. It is not an advice show, although you will get our opinion and you probably will get some advice. The advice show is on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's called Inside the Relationship. And so if you're not following us, preferably on YouTube, get over there, watch some previous episodes so you can get a sense of what the show is like. We got some great guests coming up in the coming weeks, and we want you to be a part of that. That is Inside the Relationship, 7 p.m. on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, here's our topic for today. And the reason why we like to have these is because we want it to spark conversation between you and your mate, because
Yes.
conversation is a catalyst for
Growth,
conversation is a catalyst for
bonding,
and conversation is a catalyst for
learning.
and we hope you want to grow with your spouse, learn about your spouse, and bond with your spouse. All right. So, here, ladies and gentlemen, is the topic for tonight. My spouse can no longer have sex.
Mm.
Now what?
Tragic.
Now, if you if you looked at the description, basically the show description was saying that you're in the prime of your marital experience, whatever you deem that to be. And for one reason or another, health, whatever, it doesn't matter what the reason is, but for one reason or another, your spouse can no longer have sex.
But
Let me put this caveat in.
Okay.
Sex is important to your marriage.
mm-hmm.
You can no longer have sex
Yeah.
because your spouse can no longer have sex for one reason or another.
Mm.
What does that conversation look like?
Man, it would be sad, wouldn't it?
Are you speaking for yourself? Are you ask? What are you doing? You're asking me if I would be sad?
I'm saying, don't you agree that it would be
Yes,
sad?
I think yes, I do. I
It
do
would
think
be a
it would
sad.
be.
Well, I can't speak for everyone.
Mhm,
I know for us, it
mhm.
would be sad.
Okay.
I imagine for some people, it would be like, well, let's just keep it moving. It is what it is.
Yep.
And for some people too, honestly,
Mhm.
I think it would be like, or maybe one of the two, it would be like, well, that's a relief. I ain't want to do it no way.
Wow. But then that means it wasn't important to you. I'm talking about that's different.
So you're talking about,
I'm talking for the people who are thriving and
okay.
they used to swinging from the chandeliers and things are good in that area, but for some reason now sex can no longer happen.
So to answer your question, what would that conversation be like?
Yeah.
Again, I think for that couple, it would be a sad conversation. It would be a difficult one, and it would be sad.
So let me kind of skip to the end, right? like we say in the beginning, we talk about conversations, a catalyst for learning, growth, and
Yeah.
bonding. The reason why the topics that come up on Saturday night, and if this is your first time watching this show, please go back. I would say wherever you're watching, but now Facebook deletes them. So
Mm.
you got to go to YouTube and subscribe on YouTube. Um, and I'm gonna put the YouTube thing up in a second. But the reason why these topics are even brought up on Saturday nights is for two reasons. One, these are topics that typically couples do not
Do
talk
not
about.
talk about. I know like think about it. We never had the conversation. Hey, in the event that one of us can no longer have sex anymore,
Right.
we never had that conversation.
And that brings me to the second reason why we bring these topics up is because a lot of these topics are things you probably should be talking about
Yeah.
so that you have some kind of plan in the event, God forbid,
Mm,
that you should have to experience something like that. And this is a conversation we've never had.
never had.
So you may get some insight into us because this is a conversation we're going to have in front of you. Again, if you haven't if you haven't seen these, let me put up the YouTube link real quick and then we'll get a little bit into the conversation.
But while you're putting up the link, I'm sorry, my earpiece is loose and I'm trying to tighten it.
Mhm.
But here's the thing about this topic though. My spouse can no longer have sex. Sex is not just intercourse.
And I was going to get there, but yeah, keep going.
So, what is it that your spouse can no longer do? Like literally nothing? I can't imagine that your spouse can like that there's nothing that your spouse can do. Like
Mhm.
maybe your spouse can no longer have intercourse,
Okay.
but sex is a broad, it's not just intercourse.
Mhm.
So,
So again, I guess that speaks to what would the conversation be like. So the conversation may include some alternatives.
yes, exactly.
So
Like,
if we're talking about intercourse specifically,
yeah,
then there would need to be some alternatives. So
right. So,
let's you and I do this.
mhm,
To go back to your original statement, you said it would be sad.
yeah.
It would indeed be sad. Shout out to Daniel in the comments. Daniel
What's
said, I
up,
missed the
Daniel?
beginning of today's session. Is no sex due to medical reasons?
We said for whatever reason.
It's open. So for whatever reason, whether it be medical reasons or whatever, for some reason your spouse can no longer have sex.
But here's the thing though. We're saying your spouse can no longer have sex, not your spouse no longer desires to have
Right.
sex.
Right.
We're talking about if it is physically, there's a physical reason.
Maybe there's a physical reason. I left it wide open because I didn't want to pigeonhole the conversation.
Okay, but
But
we don't mean no longer
right.
desires to have sex.
Right. But here's the context, right? Even though it's very broad, here's the context. You're in the prime of your marital experience.
Mhm.
So if you look at the description of the show description, wherever you're watching this, that's what it says. You're in the prime of your marital experience, meaning that sex is very important to you. And you're used to swinging from the chandeliers, and you're used to what's the Janet Jackson song? Anytime, anywhere, any place, whatever it is. You're used to that. Now, for some reason, and we left the reasons wide open, your spouse can no longer have sex.
Mhm.
Now what?
Yeah. So what were you going to say? You were saying something.
You were saying in the beginning, because this is a conversation that in full
We've never had
transparency,
this
we've never had this
conversation.
conversation. So you said if one of us were no longer able to have sex, that would be sad,
It
right?
would be.
What would we actually talk about though? Like what would we let's say, because you used intercourse as
Mhm.
the main thing that couldn't happen.
Mhm.
So what kinds of I don't even know what I'm asking. How do you think we would go about that conversation?
I think for us, we would go about the conversation um in this way. Well, babe, now you know that I or you
Mm-hmm.
can no longer have intercourse for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um but, here's what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
We can do this, we can do this, we can do this. That's how I think it would
and
go.
and that would also be contingent on our willingness to explore. Because let's just say the options that are presented are things we haven't done before,
This is true. Yeah.
whether it's toys, whether it's whatever, hand jobs, whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's multifaceted. So let me get this couple comments. So Justice in the comments, what's
What's
up?
up, Just?
Shout out to Justin in the
Justin
comments.
says, my thoughts are this: love and support your partner in sickness and in health. This situation may be a calling to embody that promise in a more sacrificial and selfless way, one that transforms love into action and presence rather than pleasure alone. I agree.
Bro, that sounds phenomenal.
But you have a but.
I do have a but. I mean that sounds that sounds like I will quote that when I write a book.
I mean, I agree with that
I
though.
agree. And I'm not knocking. Hear me. The question I'm asking on the heels of that comment is, what does that look like, boots on the ground?
Hmm. Whoa.
You know, that's my question, right? Because and you know this about me, right? In our coaching space, when somebody shares something with me, I'm always going to ask, what does that
What
look
does it
like?
look like?
What does it to embody? Let me take a phrase out of that. Embody that promise in a more sacrificial and
And
selfless
selfless
way.
way.
What does that look like?
That to me looks like supporting the spouse that can no longer have sex.
Hmm.
And like I said, I understand that you can't or we can't,
Hmm.
right? I understand that we can no longer have intercourse. I would love for us to come up with ways or agree on ways that would still help us to feel connected.
Okay. Okay. Let me get Barry's comment and I'm gonna say something. Shout out to Barry in the comments.
Hi, Barry.
TNT in the house. Good evening, guys. This has the makings of a great conversation. I agree. And
Mhm.
it's one we've never had. Now,
Yeah.
let me be 100%. Let me keep it a buck. In the beginning, for many people, the what you just described, it ain't gonna happen. Because we got to get not in the beginning, because we got to get past the frustration, we got to get past the disappointment, we got to get past maybe even the quick fast resentment of not being able to do this no more.
I don't agree.
You don't think so? You
No.
don't think that there are people who will be upset about the fact that they can't have sex no more
If I'm
and have to
thinking
process that before they get to the conversation you just described?
if I'm thinking along the lines of what Justin said,
Hmm.
I'm sure that yes, you can still be upset and frustrated, but not towards your spouse.
Hmm.
Upset and frustrated at the situation, but here's what we're going to have to do instead of
Let's.
that. Because
Mhm.
for like what Justin said, you want to be in sickness and in health. You want to up, uphold those vows.
Mhm.
And so it's a sacrificial thing. And so I think, of course, the frustration will be there. This
Mhm.
is something that you guys loved to do.
Mhm.
This is a wonderful way that you guys connected. This is a wonderful way that you guys were intimate.
Mhm.
So, it's like you have to almost grieve that. You're grieving
And that's kind
what
of what I mean.
was.
The
Yeah,
grieving what was. Like you're going to go through that period first, I feel like, before you just jump headlong into this conversation.
I don't know necessarily that you would have to go through a grieving process first and then the grieving stops and then you come on board with the support and the
Mhm.
sacrifice. I think that grieving is a long-term thing. You're always going to miss that,
Mm. Okay.
but you learn to live with what isn't anymore and adapt to new ways.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Okay. Just said, when you feel the
Ache
ache.
of what's missing. You don't deny your feelings, but you don't weaponize them either. You find a way to say, this is hard for me, yes, but I'm not going to make you feel like a burden. I had this conversation with my boy yesterday. I agree.
So, so
I
the
agree with that.
so the Lord knows, right?
The Lord knows
There's
your heart.
well, I'm just gonna say, like, He doesn't put more on you than you're ready for, right? This could not have happened to us in years 1 through 10.
Hmm.
Like, think back.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that because I feel like what we're talking about now, what Justin's talking about, what you're talking about, is the result of a mature
Maybe so.
couple,
Yeah, maybe so.
maturity,
Yeah.
experiencing maturity in your
Hmm.
marriage, right? Because years 1 through 10, if for some reason you could no longer have sex, I,
I don't know about 10. 10?
yes,
1 through 5,
one
maybe?
through 10,
No,
yes, 1 through 10,
that's
that would be a problem for me.
1 through 10.
10.
I
I
say 1
almost
through,
said 13.
I
That
say 1
was
through 5. Like 1 through 10, though? That's
10.
all right.
That would be a problem for me that I don't know that I would have been mature enough to handle correctly.
Mm.
So, since we're pretty much open book with folks, let me show you how I know that's the case.
Hmm.
Think about the times where we were navigating desire discrepancy,
Hmm.
and I wasn't meaning to be how I was,
But you were
but I were.
how you
I
were.
was. Right.
But I were.
So that's why I'm saying I think that God
Oh,
knows what he's doing. So and we hadn't had the conversation, so we wouldn't have even be prepped to do this.
I'm sure most people haven't had this conversation. So Barry Tate says, as a newlywed, this is a tough one. For me, I would register a whole new paid chat GPT account just to maximize alternatives and suggestions.
Mhm.
My object would be our relationship to adjust to a new normal, to a new and not just feel a sense of loss.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the beauty of this time period too. You have more options that maybe some
That's
folks had
true.
before in
That's true.
terms of getting assistance and help, right?
Yeah.
Jay said, that's the word right there, Pop. The word of the night, mature. Yeah.
Mature.
Yeah. And here's the thing I would say too. I think it's important, again, I'm not saying necessarily this conversation, but just the
Hmm.
concept of having conversations that are preparatory conversations.
Yeah. I don't know though. Yes, I agree. I agree
Like,
100%.
if this were to happen, how would you feel? What would this look like?
Yeah.
How would we navigate it?
Hmm.
That kind of thing, right? Because God forbid that ever is the case, right?
Hmm.
We kind of expect that if you're 90 years old and you have some health problems and that kind of thing, that's probably not going to take place. But
Hmm.
we don't necessarily look at it in year 3 of marriage,
Right.
like when things are hot and heavy
Yeah.
and this takes place.
Not me. 90 things gonna still be hot and heavy.
Yeah, that's why we exercising right now, for that very reason.
90, 100. Can you imagine?
I can imagine. I can. Since you asked, I can't. I can't. But that's part of it. Like, listen, just side note, commercial. Keep your muscle tone up. Like, keep your muscle tone up. Like, start lifting weights and get yourself together. You know what I mean? Because you got to be right, even in the night of your life. You got to be right. You got to be right.
You're a
Oh,
mess.
listen. So, all right. So back to the conversation. What? So the other side that I said earlier, right, is also to speak to what Barry was talking about, looking at
Hmm.
alternatives, right?
Hmm.
Now you're looking at also being open minded,
Yes.
because now you have, let's say you have the couple who has been very one or two dimensional
Yeah.
in the way they approach sexual intimacy.
Right.
Now you have you
You
got to
got
be
to be
open
more
minded,
open. Yeah.
right? Now you got to be like, okay, how do you bring this person to orgasm? Or
Hmm.
what are some things that you need to go to the store and get?
So,
Or, you know,
here is where the conversation is important, because up until this point where you can no longer have Stephanie's watching, we got to watch what we say. Up until the point where we no longer can have sexual intimacy,
Mhm.
like, what will bring your spouse to climax, right?
Yeah, you do. But what if you're in that one or two dimensional space and that's what's gone?
That's what I'm saying. So
Okay.
that's what I was saying. What I was going to say is, now you have to have the conversation of, let's try this, and you try this, and then
Hmm.
you got to have the conversation. Nope, that ain't it. That's not going to do nothing for me. Yes, that
Hmm.
works. No, do it this way. Yes, do it this way. You have to figure out new ways.
So there's a lot of conversations, basically.
There's a lot of conversations that would need to be had, because, like you said, if it's now like, I don't know, toys or whatever, you
Hmm.
got to figure out what toys,
Hmm.
how to use them on your spouse.
Yeah.
You got to have that conversation. If it's like your hand, you have to figure out, does this work? Does this feel good? Does this not feel good? You got to have those
Now
conversations.
let me throw a monkey wrench in.
Mm.
Now think about now the couple who maybe does not believe that anything outside of this one and two dimensional approach is right.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Now you got a whole nother conversation.
then there is no conversation, because what
Well, there
else is
has to
there?
be a conversation because
What?
something got to happen.
Well, I
I'm talking about
mean,
us. I'm saying if it's us. Let's say you didn't believe that outside of just sexual intercourse and I don't know whatever else, that all the other stuff is not okay.
what else is there?
We got to have a serious conversation because there's some people who may not feel like toys are okay to use. There's
Correct.
some people who, there's the conversation around, biblically whether oral and
Mm-hmm.
some of these other things uh are good, right?
Very.
So but that brings in a whole nother caveat, which is why you probably don't want to have to deal with this without a game plan.
But here's what I'm going back again to what I said in the beginning. Sex is not just intercourse.
Right.
So, if you don't believe in, if you are the couple that doesn't believe in oral and sex, or like toys and hands and stuff like that, then there are other ways to feel. I can't even say sexually fulfilled, because to me I don't get it, but maybe you do. Like, there, because sex is not just intercourse.
Yeah,
So
yeah, right.
what else is there? The hugging,
Barry
the
says somebody got the
kissing,
backslide. Hmm.
all of that kind of stuff. The
Yeah.
hugging, the kissing, the
And that's why the
I don't
conversation
know,
that's why
man.
the
The
conversation is important.
fondling. I don't
That's
know.
why the conversation is important because one, you'll learn something about your spouse
Yeah.
and you'll learn from a physical perspective what they require.
Require.
Yeah, I use that for shock value. What they need,
Yeah.
right? And that's really, I think that's really what it boils down to. What do they need?
Hmm.
Now, here's a wonderful conversation to have, ladies and
Hmm.
gentlemen, while you are still swinging from the chandeliers, is still to find out what they need.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And
What a great time to have this conversation while there isn't an issue.
I wouldn't wait until there is an issue to know whether or not your spouse agrees with toys and
Right.
oral sex and just hands and
And
all
that's
that
why
kind
you
of
should have
stuff.
that conversation because your spouse might have been looking at this device for the last 6 months and ain't say nothing to you. But now that you had this conversation, you have empowered them to be like, you know what? I have been looking at such and such, and I would like to try such and
Hmm.
such. So maybe that conversation should happen now. That way, you've created a level of intimacy
Yeah.
that can withstand any changes.
But, I think if this were to happen later in life,
Hmm.
people might be thinking, well, it's so late in life. Things were starting to wane
We
anyway.
just gonna let it go.
We just gonna let it go.
Not me. Mm-mm. Nope. not, not me. We need a
So,
game plan.
so I don't know. I just feel like maybe it depends on the age. Well, no, it doesn't depend on the age. I take that back. It doesn't depend on the
I
age.
don't think it. Well, I don't think it should. I don't think it should depend on the age.
It shouldn't depend on the age. It really
Jay
shouldn't.
said, "Not me either." Yeah, nah. You know, we're
Woo.
yeah. Don't depend on the age, but I do think it's a good conversation, and I we didn't plan to be on long tonight, but I really wanted to just kind of throw that out there. Barry said, "I agree till the wheels
Till
fall
the
off."
wheels fall off. I know that's right.
And Barry, when the wheels fall off, we gonna we gonna get a trailer to
We're
carry.
gonna pick it up and
we
run
gonna,
with it like the
we gonna
Flintstones.
we're gonna figure something else out, right? but I do really think it's a good conversation because, and this is a very different conversation than a show we had a really long time ago, which we may do again, which is I'm not interested in having sex
Yeah,
anymore.
it's
That's a
different.
very different
It's
conversation.
different.
Um, but I think this is a good one. When the
When
wheels
the
fall
wheels
off.
fall off, the engine still works. Yes,
Exactly.
indeed.
Exactly. So I think that's a good conversation. And part of having that conversation again, part of having that conversation now,
Mm-hmm.
you may discover some things about your spouse that will help enhance your intimacy
Mm-hmm.
now
Right.
before anything God forbid were to happen that would cause you to kick in the gear and have a game plan. So
Right.
I think it's a good conversation.
I think it is too.
Um, so have that conversation with your spouse. Um, it's a twofold conversation. One, what do you need in the way of sexual intimacy
Now, like
now?
now.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
what do you need in the way of sexual intimacy now? And it's not to say that your needs aren't being met,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just so that
Yeah.
because maybe all of your needs are being met, but you've never actually articulated what they are.
Right. This is true.
Right. So it's not necessarily oh, well, I'm not getting this and I need this. Sometimes it is, hey, everything you're doing right now is
That's what I
everything I
need.
want.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
And
That's true.
and that is a good thing to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To know that you knocking it out the park, pun
Mm-hmm.
intended. So that's just a good thing. It's a good thing. And then the other side of that conversation is okay, in the event that what we've established in the way of sexual intimacy is no longer functionable. Is that a word?
No.
I made it up.
Functional.
Can no longer functional. Is no longer functional in the way that we're approaching it now.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do
What
next?
do we do next?
What do we do next?
Yeah.
I think that's a conversation to have.
It is, but man, I just feel like probably 95, if not more, percent of couples do not have this
No, no,
particular conversation.
because we're not necessarily thinking that
No.
way, right?
No.
It's almost like we're in a season of life now. You and I are in a season of life now where we're having certain conversations with our parents.
You're right.
We just don't want to have them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing. Like there's certain like nobody just kind of has on their agenda. I'm going to talk to my wife about just in case,
Yeah.
but you should.
It's a
Just like we should be talking to our parents about the things that we're talking to them about now and prepping for the things that we know will come in the future.
mm.
You got to do that with your marriage as well. And that's not to say that things are going to happen.
I was gonna say, yeah, but this is not necessarily an inevitable
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like all these conversations that we bring up, I think it's just important to be on that
To
level
know.
with your
Yeah.
spouse
Hmm.
where you can just have conversations about anything
Agreed.
and you can learn about them and leverage that learning to your success.
Yeah, I agree.
That's really what it boils down to,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
um I don't have much else to say except for we haven't had the conversation, so we should probably put some plans in place We probably need to go to that store we was driving the other day and see what they got.
We are
see,
good. I
see what
don't
they
know that we need to, well, I guess, like you said, we need to plan for the what ifs.
Well, we are planning for the what ifs. We're exercising. That's a part of the planning for the what ifs, right? Because barring there is just a medical scenario that really disables us in that way. Being healthy, eating right,
Yeah.
eating the right foods, eating stuff that are, natural aphrodisiacs,
We should do a
um,
show on
all that
that
kind of
one
stuff.
day.
What natural aphrodisiacs?
Like, yeah, natural
Okay,
aphrodisiacs and stuff like that.
all right, we can do that.
Do like some research and do a show about it.
That'll work. We
People
can
may
bring
not know.
Tanique back. Um,
Yes, that would be
Listen, for
good,
those of you
actually.
who missed this, since I mentioned her, for those of you who missed this, have a conversation. No, not have a conversation. Inside the
Inside
relationship
the
episode
relationship on
with
Thursdays.
Tanique Gentles. You need to go back to our YouTube channel and watch that.
That was great.
That was a good episode.
Yeah,
Um,
she's good.
Inside the mind of a sex therapist. She gave some really good insight.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could probably bring her back for that show.
Hmm.
And have some good conversation around that. So listen, we're gonna get out of here. This was one we just wanted to just throw out there and let y'all deal with it. This was one of those topics. We just want to throw it out there and y'all have a conversation, man. I would really encourage you, just for the sake of, even if it's just for the sake of hearing your spouse's thoughts. I would encourage you to do that.
Let's see what Daniel says. Daniel says, I have to say, I waited until after marriage, almost 2 years, for sex. It
Hmm.
was her strong religious and traditional belief to abstain until we were married. And out of respect for her values and our relationship, I chose to wait with her. Does that experience relate to what we're discussing today?
Um,
I waited until after marriage, almost 2 years for sex. So are you saying that
yeah, I wanted
you
to
didn't
clarify that
have
too.
sex until
For the first
two?
2 years of your marriage, you didn't have sex,
Yeah, is that what you're saying?
and that's fine if that's what you're saying. But to answer your question, I don't know that this applies. Now, having said that, not wanting to have sex for religious reasons does apply. So if you're married,
Mhm.
right? If you and I are married and we've been married for 2, 3, 4 years and we haven't had sex because your religious belief around sex has just not caused you to turn that corner, then
Mhm.
yes, that does kind of apply, but that's a very different scenario. So
Yeah.
we're talking about, for this particular scenario, we're talking about the people who sex is important and they're having a phenomenal sexual experience and then all of a sudden it's cut off for one reason or another.
Let's
This is
say,
something
for
different.
example, that maybe it was some type of medical issue. For
Right.
example, that's the type of
Yeah.
some reason or another that we're talking about.
This is something a little, Daniel, this is something a little different, what you're
Mm,
describing, right? This is, well, you know what? No, it's not.
it's not.
It's not,
It's
because
not.
we didn't give any parameters.
Yeah.
We said for whatever reason.
Right.
And religious reasons is a reason.
Is a reason.
Yeah. So I take that back, Daniel. Yeah. I mean, I guess it would apply.
Yeah.
I guess it would apply. And in that case, you still have to have a conversation, right?
Hmm.
Um, that conversation is going to be a little bit more multifaceted because now you're having to deal with a belief system
Right.
and the nuances of navigating your sexual experience based on looking through the lens of that belief system. That's a very different level of conversation.
Yeah. I'm curious though. Like, well, I guess I would have to get clarification on the first sentence first.
Hmm.
Like, 2 years into your marriage, are you saying that there was no sex during the first 2 years of your marriage? Because I'm curious as to, because typically, once you are married, even whatever the religious beliefs are, once you
Hmm.
are married, for the religions that I know about at least, once you're married,
It's a
you're
green light.
good. It's a green light.
Now here's the other side of that, and we've seen this
Hmm.
where people have gone through maybe purity
Purity
culture
culture. Yep.
or have done some different things prior to marriage
Yeah.
that really
Makes it difficult.
makes it difficult for them to flip the switch, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? And the way, and this goes and this takes us down a whole different road,
Hmm.
right? Um, this takes us down a whole different road where that is an issue, right? That people deal with,
Hmm.
and now you're trying to you're trying to be okay with something that you were taught for so long is not okay. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's a very different thing, and maybe that's another conversation we
Hmm.
have down the road.
Okay, so Daniel says no, there was no sex until
Until after
after
marriage, yeah,
married. Okay.
So in that case, then Daniel, then that's not like abstaining before.
Right. It's not.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that into this category because that's a general. How can I say this without alienating any particular person?
Yeah.
That's a general belief system for many people
Hmm.
that's taught. You know that you should wait until you're married. So no,
So
I
to
don't know
answer
that
your
that
question,
yeah.
no, I don't think that that's what we're discussing
Yeah,
today.
I don't think that that would apply. This is after marriage. So
Yeah.
you're married, sex is great,
Hmm.
y'all are loving on each other, man. It's just hot and heavy, and then something happens that takes that away.
Hmm.
Whatever that something is, medical
Yeah.
reasons, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe even religious reasons at that point. They just wake up one morning and like, you know what, I shouldn't be doing this no more. That's a whole nother conversation. Um, which again, I stress these are the kinds of things you should probably talk to your mate about
Mm.
because you really don't want to find that out by accident.
I, I don't know that that's a
I don't know that
thing.
that's a thing, but I'm saying nothing is a thing until it is. You know what I mean? Like so you should probably have a conversation. You know
Nothing
what I
is a thing until it
mean?
is.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So you should probably have a conversation about it. Is
That's
really
true.
what what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And the reason why you should have a conversation as we bring this to a close is that conversation is a catalyst for
For growth,
conversation is a catalyst for
bonding,
and conversation is a catalyst for.
learning.
And we hope you want to grow with your spouse. We hope you want to learn about your spouse. And we hope that you want to bond with your spouse. And
Yeah.
a phenomenal way to do that is through conversation.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, so as we get out of here, make sure that if you're not following us on YouTube, that you go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe over there. You can get all of the previous shows. We used to say you can get the previous shows wherever you're watching this,
Yeah.
but
But
our
Facebook
Facebook
doesn't
family,
keep them.
they don't keep them. So you can't go back too far. Go over to YouTube and subscribing would actually help us.
And hit the notification bell
Right.
so that when we do go live, you'll be notified about it.
Yeah, so you'll be notified about it. And then also make sure that for those of you who rock with us on Thursdays, that you are with us on Thursdays for Inside the Relationship on Thursdays. Fellas, I need you to pick this book up, Overcoming the Man Laws for the Man Who Wants to Be His Best Despite What He Was Taught. I need you to grab that. You can
Yeah.
either grab that on denali.org/shop or you can get that on Amazon. All right.
Mhm.
So grab that and I'll be grateful. Listen, we're going to get out of here. And as always, thank you all for being the best part of this. Those of you who are watching or watching the replay, those of you in the comments, shout out to you all as well. Thank you for engaging and being a part of this. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. Phenomenal. Phenomenal book. Yes, book.
I thought he was calling us boo. Phenomenal boo.
Phenomenal book. Appreciate that endorsement, Barry. Thank you for that. Thank you for that endorsement. I appreciate that very much, very much. Have a fantastic rest of your Saturday night, a great rest of your weekend, and start talking.
Start talking. Have a conversation.
Have a conversation. We're gonna get out of here. We're gonna have some conversation as well, and maybe even act out some of what we talk about. All right. So, with that, good night.